Hey everybody, Joe Joseph here for thedailysheeple.com, and this is your news shot. So, Ars Technica has a hard-to-swallow story, insane drug cocktails in India. Net drug makers millions of dollars and pose a global threat because these things are very controversial and they're not approved anywhere. It says in August 2016, doctors in Washoe County, Nevada, found one of their patients couldn't shake a bad bacterial infection. The infection had taken hold years before while the local woman was an extended visit to India. There she'd undergone multiple hospitalizations and surgery for a leg injury and developed a bone infection. By the time she got back to Nevada, the infection had spread. Now, the U.S. doctors isolated her in a hospital and threw all the antibiotics they could at the infection, but it resisted all of them, 26 in total. And in early September, the woman developed septic shock and she died. The case highlights two important points. One, that drug-resistant bacteria really doesn't stop at borders, okay? It doesn't matter if you have a wall or anything else, okay? These things happen, and that India is of particular concern in the fight against antibiotic-resistant infections. And while the case of drug-resistant bacterial infections are rising globally, recent data shows that India actually has among the highest rates of such infections in the world. The country is also the largest consumer of antibiotics per capita. Now, what does this say? What this says is that there's a clearer picture now as to why the country appears to be a breeding ground for these drug-resistant strains. And the problem is when you start to have this in one country being a global economy, right? We always hear globalism. Because it's a global economy, what ends up happening? There is a risk of contagion. And when you start talking about diseases or infections that antibiotics can't treat, now you're left to immune systems that for years and years have been weakened by a multitude of things, whether it be the food, through GMO foods, whether it be through the vaccines, whether it be through geoengineering and chemtrails, whether it be through genetic modification, not food, human, and I could go on and on. All of these things contribute to the fact that we cannot fight off disease like we used to. And also the overuse of antibiotics. Now, drug companies, some even based here in the U.S., are selling millions of dubious and unapproved cocktails of antibiotics in India, all of which could spur the development of a drug-resistant bacteria and imperil patients and people throughout the world. This is a finding that was published Monday in the British Journal of Clinical Pharmacology by UK health experts, suggesting that the country poses a risk to global health and undermines efforts to control drug resistance. Now, there's a sales figure that they used from a commercial database of Indian drug distribution called PharmaTrack. And they looked at sales between October 2007 and November 2012, and they compared the inventory of drugs sold in India to the list of drugs approved by India's Central Drug Standard Control Organization, as well as those approved by U.S. Food and Drug and the European Medical Agency. And here's what they found. They found that the drug companies sold 86 regular so-called single-dose antibiotics and 118 fixed-dose combination antibiotics over the 5-year period. The FDC drugs, are formulations composed of 2 or more drugs at fixed ratios in a single dose. They can include 2 or more antibiotics or antibiotics in a different type of drug, such as maybe an antiprotozoal drug. Such a combo is rare in the U.S. and in the U.K. Drug companies sold just 5 of these in the U.S. and in the U.K. during that time period. Now, more than 118 of these sold in India were poorly considered, the authors noted. Some combined antibiotics that needed to be taken at different intervals to work. For instance, one FTC paired an antibiotic that needed to be taken once a day with another that needed to be taken every 8 hours to work effectively. Some combinations risked amplified side effects, while others combined drugs that wouldn't be given to treat the same illness. Of the 118 types, 75 had no approval from either the CDSCO, that's India's FDA, the FDA here in the U.S., or the European Medical Agency. Now, nearly all of the single-dose antibiotics were approved, on the other hand. Now, still, FTCs overall made up 34% of the antibiotics sold in India by 2012, roughly 872 million doses that year. And 42% of the FTCs sold contain antibiotics that the World Health Organization considered highest priority, critically important drugs, which should be used extremely sparingly. Very interesting. Now, there are 12 multinational corporations responsible for making 53 of the 118, and that includes Abbott, AstraZeneca, Baxter, Bayer, Eli Lilly, GlaxoSmithKline, Merck, Novartis, Pfizer, Aventis, and Weeth. Now, of the 53 FTCs, only 4 were approved by the FDA or the EMA, and 20 were not approved to be even in India, but were still sold in India. Abbott made $367 million in 2014 in profits from the FTCs in India. That is unbelievable. And these are antibiotics that are not approved for use, and they're still doing it. Why? Hey, it makes money. The hell with the fact that it's going to kill people. It makes money. Hey, our stakeholders are happy. What the hell do we care about the Indian people? They got so many people over there. I mean, do you see what's going on, folks? This shouldn't be tolerated. And Big Pharma is totally and completely out of control. So let's rein them in. And let's rein our governments in. Because they're not doing anything. Look at this. What a great example of how they actually don't do what they're supposed to be doing, and they're doing what they're not supposed to be doing. Maybe if they focused on what they were supposed to be doing. No, they don't ever focus on what they're supposed to be doing. So maybe we should just get rid of them. That's a good idea. I like that better. I'm Joe Joseph. This was thedailysheeple.com's News Shot. Feel free to comment below and visit our website at thedailysheeple.com. # Wake the Flock Up. Have a great day, everybody.